Hi, my name is Shams Khan. I'm a consultant in emergency medicine at Wrightington, Wigan and Lee Infirmary, and I'm also the PA tutor for Edge Hill Physician Associates. I'm going to talk very briefly about our experience over the last 2 years of taking on Physician Associate students from Edge Hill University, of what it is to have been a PA tutor, of what it was to educationally supervise them, and also the roles of bringing on educational supervisors, learning from our experiences and where we're going in the future. So we've had Physician Associates at Wrightington, Wigan and Lee Infirmary for a number of years now, and I've taken up the PA tutor role since 2020. And initially when I took on the role, we didn't have many educational supervisors, so I started off actually supervising many of them myself. And that was a really good experience for me for a number of reasons, but one of the most important reasons was it's given me good insight in what it is to educationally supervise them. And the most important thing I found was each of the PA students does something called a SWOT analysis of themselves as they come into it. And for me, that really helped me to get to know each and every single physician associate as they came in. And I found each one recognised their own limitations and also helped them to express some of the anxieties that they had coming forward. And some of those anxieties that they had aren't things that you may necessarily think of yourself when you think of someone who's coming to you as whether it's a medical student or a PA student. And examples that came forward were physician associate students that had to use public transport. They were worried that they couldn't get to ward rounds on time. Other examples were, how do I finance a year? I've got a family to support, I've had to pay quite a lot in tuition fees. So all of these things come to light and help you understand your own student, and I think that was a really important thing, getting to know them really well, helping you to think outside the box a little bit about what you may need to do to support your student. I think the important thing also to recognise as an educational supervisor, some of the difficulties that may come up, you mustn't take that on yourself or think that you have to do that alone. As well as a PA tutor and as well as medical education, Edge Hill provide fantastic support, and sharing some of these things early actually does help you come up with answers for each and individual PA student, and actually you find yourself making a big difference to the life of someone who is going to be one of our future clinicians. The portfolio itself, Pebblepad, as you get used to it, it's fairly self-explanatory, and I found the PA students are really good at uploading all their learning outcomes and their feedback. In terms of infrastructure, as a PA tutor, what we've implemented at Wigan, the clinical supervisors are all the doctors and nurses in each and every ward that they go to, and anyone that has any kind of registration number, whether it's NMC, whether it's GMC, can give feedback, and the learning outcomes are pretty clear. They're generally the different types of examination, whether it's respiratory, cardiovascular, GI. It's also history taking, and it's very clear where they've uploaded it, and it's quite obvious how many they have to do and what they have to, the criteria that they have to meet. Also on their physician associates portfolio, they do need to upload how long they've spent on each ward, and they are assessed at a national level by the amount of time, and there is a minimum number of hours that has to be uploaded, and that's quite easy to click on, see and sign off as an educational supervisor. What's important as a PA tutor, I think, is receiving feedback when you've got your educational supervisors appointed, is keeping in touch with them and having sessions with them and listening to some of the feedback that they've given you. And some of the things that the educational supervisors that we've got at Wigan have brought up with me, I had feedback that some of the physician associates begin and they often compare themselves to the medical students, which in some ways is not necessarily a bad thing, and actually organisations such as myself, the feedback we're given is a physician associate is roughly equivalent of a fourth year medical student, so in one sense it's quite helpful, but in another sense it can hold the physician associates back, constantly comparing themselves to what the other medical students are doing. And so I think that was really good feedback, is just to say to the physician associates, look, you're a professional entity in your own right, you've got your own learning outcomes, concentrate on them and don't necessarily worry about some of the other things that other medical students are doing. It's not necessarily always relevant, and I think that's important, that we empower the physician associates and that they understand they just need to worry about their own learning outcomes. And I think it's important that whilst this sort of the physician associate is roughly the equivalent of a fourth year medical student, gives the clinical supervisors a kind of idea of where to start. It's important that they're recognised as physician associates and as individual clinicians in their own right, and not treated completely identically to medical students, and therefore different goals put in place that aren't necessarily required for them. So that was a really good bit of feedback that I had. Other things that came up in discussion with educational supervisors: is it okay to teach the physician associates alongside the medical students? And I think the short answer to that was yes, in the context of they're on a ward together and there's a case where their learning outcomes align, absolutely fine. I think where the confusion comes in, if there's fixed teaching that is just for medical students from whichever university, probably other students from different backgrounds encroaching on that is probably where the confusion comes in. And I think respecting the boundaries of individual teaching sessions put on for either medical students or physician associates, but if they're on the ward, if they are there together and the cases align to learning outcomes, absolutely they can be taught together, and I don't see any issue with that at all. So these are the sort of things that have come up in having discussions with the educational supervisors that we've got in place. The timesheets come up, and some educational supervisors have brought up concerns. Well, how do I know my physician associate has been on the ward for the number of hours that they've said? And our medical education department is pretty clear. They keep a much closer eye on that than we necessarily think. And so from the point of view of an educational supervisor, I think you can take it as read. What has gone up is what has been done. And the physician associates are students. They take their work very seriously. They're part of a university, and it's in their interest to be there. And it's actually looked out for by medical education, which supports things like sign-ins, and the scrutiny is there. So as long as it's uploaded as an educational supervisor, you can be confident that that's accurate. I found the physician associates to be very open and honest. When they've had difficulties, when they've had issues that they haven't been able to attend, they flag it pretty early. And again, I've made it clear to the educational supervisors, if you're having difficulties and your students having difficulties, share it at an early stage. And the university has been an absolute fantastic support in helping physician associates through some difficult times, and particularly the last few years where there has been need to isolate, whether or not you're ill or not, and things have been difficult in the working environment. We've found Edge Hill University to be a really important support to the students, to make sure that a lack of hours doesn't work against them, and there has been good understanding about that. So support is there at every step for educational supervisors and for PA tutors. So where are we going forward with this? I hope to recruit a lot more educational supervisors. Some lessons that we've learned from the physician associates themselves. If we can brief each area in some way or another, and a way we found of doing that is to email all the clinicians and the nurses in the area the physician associates are about to go to, for example in paediatrics or in obstetrics. We email who the physician associates are, when they're coming, and also the learning outcomes. It hugely improves the experience of the physician associates. They're expected, the nurses know how to supervise them, the clinicians know how to supervise them, what they need to get, and it all makes for a much better experience. And that's something that we've learned and that we want to keep up. We'll continue to take feedback from the physician associates, we'll continue to take feedback from the educational supervisors and build upon every attachment, and we're greatly supported. So I really look forward to continuing on as a PA tutor. It's been a real honour, it's been a real privilege in this role. I feel very, very, very well supported, and I think in future, in the not too distant future, I sincerely hope my trust takes on physician associates as employed clinicians, and that we can settle them into the workforce as so many other organisations have done. Well, thank you very much for the time and for the opportunity, and apologies that I can't be there in person.